All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here at the Climate Toolkit Symposium. I got to meet a lot of you yesterday, but my name is Jennifer. I manage our youth climate advocacy projects here at Phipps, and I'm very excited to have with me some of the youth from our Youth Climate Advocacy Committee. I am honored to work with some of the most brilliant, dedicated, creative, courageous, inquisitive, and kind young people that the greater Pittsburgh region has. And I'm excited to have them here to talk with you today. I think you will be just as impressed with them as I am every time I work with them. So, we are having this youth panel because here at Phipps, in our work, we've noticed that young people care a lot about the same things that we care about when it comes to climate. We've seen that young people are incredibly knowledgeable about the intersections between social and environmental justice, about things like climate change. They're really inspired to take action, and they really want to take action on these issues that they care about most. And at the same time, we've also seen that young people's voices are often brushed aside. They're not given the credibility that they deserve. They're not given a seat at the table. And there are a lot of barriers that stand in their way. As we all know from the work that we do in climate, working on climate by yourself is really isolating and defeating. And you need that strong community to come together and uplift each other to get meaningful action done. And so, what we hope to do at Phipps is to provide that same sort of space for young people in the climate movement. Just like we have the Climate Toolkit for all of our cultural institutions to join together and share the amazing work that you all are doing, we also have the Climate Toolkit Youth Network, which is for youth at your institutions who are working on climate and environment. And we also have our own local program, the Youth Climate Advocacy Committee, for youth in Pittsburgh to take action on the things that they care about most. And what we've seen is that young people in Pittsburgh are really, really dedicated to giving back to their communities, finding those avenues to take action, and really working together and learning from each other the same way that you all are interested in learning from each other here today. So this felt like a very good alignment of something that we should bring into this symposium, and we're very excited to have you all here chatting with our young people about this. So just a quick overview before we dive into our panel about what our Youth Climate Advocacy Committee, or YCAC, is. Our program is for ages 16 to 23, so late high school and college age youth. We have about 30 to 35 young people who are deeply caring and dedicated to climate action and environmental justice, both locally and globally. In the YCAC, the youth that are part of it work on climate action issues of their choice. And so what this means is that staff members like myself really act as stage managers. We pull back the curtains, turn on the lights, file the paperwork, bring the connections and resources that they need to succeed. But a lot of the time, the youth in our committee are really the ones running the show. They're the ones up on the stage. And there are meetings where I barely speak. We have a youth leadership team, some of them are here today, that are returning members from our committee that come back to guide the next year, and maybe the next year after that, and maybe the next year after that in the case of Marley. They come back to guide the activities and the discussions and really help support the other young people in the committee. And what we've seen is that we can work together in partnership with young people on what sort of issues they care about most and how they want to address those issues. They have had so many brilliant ideas that have come to life over the last 4 years of our program, and we are so excited to be able to support them with things like connections to local experts, leadership opportunities, educational resources, and guidance on their project development. But what makes this committee so successful and special isn't what we provide for the young people we serve, but how they continuously show up with incredible dedication. They pour their hearts and souls into this work, and they continuously shape the committee to become something that truly represents them. So I'm going to pass it over to Marley now. Marley is a founding member of the YCAC. She has been part of it since 2021. So I always joke that we've been doing this the same amount of time. But Marley, if you would like to come on up and talk a little bit more.
Yeah, of course. Just to introduce myself real quick, my name is Marley. I am the YCAC college leader, but I'm also acting as Andrew's Climate Toolkit engagement intern this semester. So I've seen a lot of your names on a lot of different papers over the past couple of months, so I'm excited to see you all here today. You probably have seen me floating around all day, but now I'm up here. So we have founded our committee on so many goals and principles that have been established since 2021, but have also changed over the years to really represent our committee as it has changed over the years. So here's just some that we have listed here that reflect the principles and goals that we most work with today in our committee. The first one is one that's been here since the founding of it, highlight the concerns of young people. That, like Jennifer was saying, that is why this committee was formed, to give young people the platform to speak out on what concerns them the most. It also acts to bring so many various and diverse groups of students together across things like neighborhoods, grade levels, schools. This is a committee that has both high school and college students. And I am a junior in college right now, but truly some of the high schoolers in this committee are like my best friends. So it is just such a fun community where no matter your age, where you come from, what your background is, you form friends with these people because they have the same concerns as you, and they have the same goals as you, and you all are working towards something familiar. And then lastly, a last goal is to create avenues for action. Like Jennifer was saying, the ultimate goal of YCAC is to give a platform for the passion that the youth have, because the passion already exists, or else they wouldn't show up here in the first place. But the goal of YCAC is really to give the youth in the committee the connections they need, the platform they need to get their goals done and to make some real change. So some primary principles of YCAC are that it's youth driven, where the youth really empower each other to get things done. There's a lot of constructive feedback that happens. We have this thing called step up and step back, where it's like you step up when you have something to say, but also if you can recognize that if you've spoken too much, you need to step back and let someone else speak and really have everyone's voice be heard, that there's no wrong opinion, and that it's actually very important to hear opinions that are different than your own, even if you might think that they're wrong, because that person could really change your mind as long as you're open to hearing what they have to say. Another principle that we have is fairness and inclusivity. Obviously, that's very important in a diverse group of people. We just always want everyone's voice to be heard, and we want everyone to feel like their voice can be heard in the first place. And then two overlying principles over all of this are collective action and environmental justice, because again, like Jennifer was saying, our main goal is environmental justice. It's not just us caring about the environment, but it's us thinking about how the problems we care about disproportionately impact communities that are represented in our group, but also maybe communities that aren't even represented in our group, and really having that open-mindedness. And collective action is how we get those actions done to actually make a difference in those areas. So I'll hand it back to Jennifer for a second.
So we often give an overview of what our committee looks like, and then people pull me aside later and they're like, but what does this actually look like week to week? Like, what do you do in your meetings? So just to give you an idea of some of the things that happen in meetings, we have discussions. We do something called fishbowl discussions, where we have a few seats in the center and a lot of people sitting around the outside of a circle. And as the people in our committee hear something that resonates with them, they tap someone out in the middle of the circle and they join the conversation, where the conversation is only happening in the center. And so there's a lot less pressure for everybody to be talking in a big group, and everyone gets a chance to speak and share their perspective, which is amazing. Um, there are a lot of fun activities that teach about climate and teach about things like climate privilege and who's most impacted, and very specific environmental justice issues. There are guest speakers that we bring in that are local experts that come in and talk about the ways that they are making an impact in the Pittsburgh community related to climate or the environment. And we have a lot of collaborative things happening in our meetings as well. We have students that will lead mental health breaks. We'll have students that will come up to the front and share opportunities that they've heard about. We'll have students that will come up and share about different conferences they've gone to or different summits that they've attended and what they've learned. So it's really a collaborative space and a lot of sharing, a lot of coming up with ideas of how to educate each other on different topics. And a lot of what we do in the meetings is planned by the students, so by the youth leadership team, but also the committee members coming up and suggesting guest speakers or suggesting activities that we can do, which is something that's really special.
Yeah, on that same note, I wanted to highlight some of our amazing projects that Emma and, Matilda and I, the other leader last year, helped lead, and then Emma and I this year are going to help lead a whole new group of projects, which I'm really excited about. But as the college leader last year, I helped lead these projects, and you'll see some familiar faces up there. They're also on the stage right now, so I won't go too much into it because I'm sure that they have a lot more to say about it than I ever could. But one of them was aquatic planting, which is one that we actually don't have represented here today, but was a really cool example of how students actually went out into the field, and they helped restore some riparian zones in the Pittsburgh area because that was something that they were very passionate about, and they were able to partner with an outside organization and do that, and that's them doing that, and it was very cool. Cortlan up here led a sustainable art and fashion show last year, which was kind of like our trademark in YCAC. We've been doing it every year since 2021, and it's always just so much fun. And Cortland led a very great one last year, alongside Alex over there with the CMU Sustainability Initiative and some of her students. So that was a really good partnership that we had last year. And then also Anwita with the environmental education group, they went to some schools in the Pittsburgh area and taught a lesson plan that they made on environmental education to some young students, and that was one that meant a lot to me because that's actually what I did my first year of YCAC. Is I went to a local middle school, and I also taught a lesson plan. So that was just really cool to see that come back last year with them. And this is just an example of how some traditions have upheld in YCAC, kind of building on ideas from past years, but also how new ideas do come up based on some individual passions that some of the groups have.
All of this work culminates at the end of the year with a huge showcase where students in YCAC are able to share the work that they've been doing with the public. Our first year, we had probably about 100, 120 participants and attendees at the showcase. And last year, thanks to partnerships like the CMU Sustainability Initiative, we had over 300 people register and attend the showcase. And it was packed. It was incredible. Our students got to see the sustainable art and fashion show. They got to visit the tables of the students and hear about how they could participate and take action on the things that the students really care about. And they also got to meet a lot of other local organizations that are doing similar work, many of them who actually partnered with our students on their projects. So a very special event, but a great way to show off all of the work that our youth have been doing.
I would have to say that this is one of my favorite parts because as much as I love being in this room every week, it's so fun seeing the different opportunities that also arise from it, that some of which we could have never imagined doing without our connection here at Phipps. So one of them is we always present every year at the Pittsburgh Youth for Climate Action Summit. The location changes every year. Sometimes it's at the Children's Museum, sometimes it's at the convention center downtown, but it's really an outlet for youth climate groups from all across Pittsburgh because, believe it or not, if you're not from here, there are a lot of them. And they all come together either from schools or outside organizations, nonprofits, and it's a day for all of those youth to come together and work together, educate each other. So that's something that we present at each year with our different working groups. We really encourage the students to make a presentation on what they've been working on and then educate other people outside of YCAC on it. Um, Another thing is that since I believe my second year of YCAC, so this was 2022, we've been attending the local conference of youth, which has been in many various places, including they have a virtual option. But this is basically, it's held by the organization Youngo, and it's basically a youth version of the Conference of Parties, where youth can come together and they draft a joint statement for the White House on what they want to see in terms of climate action across this country. So that's something that select students have been attending ever since the inaugural one in 2022. So that's very exciting to see the different perspectives that come from that every year. Another thing, as we already mentioned, we collaborate with the CMU Sustainability Initiative, like through the fashion show last year, and also we held a fashion and art workshop with them last year as well, which was very fun, all through Cortland's hard work in his working group. And another thing we actually did last weekend was we did some tree planting with Tree Pittsburgh. This is also something we did last year and we brought back this year. It's just always really fun to kind of get out in the field. We're kind of stuck indoors a lot, which is not preferable a lot of the time. We do want to get outside. We want to get our hands dirty a little bit. So that's a good chance to really connect with the earth and just do some good. We planted some trees last weekend at West Mifflin School District, and now we planted the last 14 trees in their tree planting mission over the past year, and now they actually have a fully established arboretum in their backyard, which is a really exciting thing. And lastly, something that I loved when we did it last summer was we connected with Jen from the Wild Center, and we went to the Adirondacks. Cortland was there, Emma was there, and a couple other students were there, and it was a great time. We had, I think, 6 youth leaders that were there to help youth from the Wild Center really lead this retreat. It's kind of the same thing as Jennifer was saying, where it was really the youth that were leading the retreat, and then the staff workers were there to kind of just guide it along the way. And I actually wasn't even there as a youth leader, I was there as a staff member, so I kind of witnessed that happen myself. So that was really exciting. We got to tour the farm up there, we got to tour the Wild Center, of course. We stayed on the beautiful North Country School campus, which is a beautiful summer camp up there. So it was just a great time connecting with nature, connecting with our meals, because we had chefs that cooked us meals every night, and we were very passionate about making sure that we were connected with the food that we were eating. So it was just a great experience, especially because a lot of the people that were there were heading straight off to college. So it was just a great way to wrap up our year last year. And we're hoping that those kind of travel opportunities keep on arising in the future.
And speaking of, we are very excited to be attending COP30 in Brazil in just a couple weeks. We are lucky enough to have the opportunity to send Marley and myself to go represent Phipps in Pittsburgh and youth in this area, while negotiators from around the world make climate policy. We have attended COP28 and COP26 in the past and been able to take a young person one of their time as well, and really saw the impact that young people can have at a global climate conference. Negotiators are very willing to listen to young people, and a lot of the time, many nations have very similar goals to young people and are very willing to work with us on even drafting text that they bring into the negotiations. And so we're very excited for the opportunity to get to do that in just a couple weeks. So now we're going to go into the panel portion of this session, and I want to give you all an opportunity to meet your panelists. So I'm going to have each of them come up and introduce themselves. Anwita, we'll start with you.
My name is Anwita. I'm a senior from North Hills Senior High School, and some of my favorite environmental topics are climate education, which was the project that I did last year with a couple others from my CAC, and sustainable art. I took part in Cortland's fashion show last year, which was so much fun, and then sustainable business practices is also something I'm passionate about. And why I got interested in climate advocacy was seeing climate issues firsthand growing up was very like changing for me and really got me like involved in trying to make an impact. And some of my past projects were a sustainability consultancy project this summer, environmental lessons through ICAC, and then agricultural methane policy, which I worked on through CMU Succeeds program.
Hi, my name is Cortlan. I'm a freshman at Pitt right now, the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm majoring in environmental studies on a pre-law track. My introduction to the world of environmental advocacy and um, environmental justice came from my parents being teachers, and they would they exposed my sister and I to museums like the Carnegie Science Center and all of these different museums in Pittsburgh from a young age. So we were really into it as a family, and it as I grew up, it really influenced my path. My past projects that I've been working on was last year I worked on the Youth Sustainable Art and Fashion Showcase, which we partnered with CMU, and um, it was really nice. We got a ton of different high schools from the area to have submission, like different students would put in their submissions for this showcase. We got we heard a lot of people's environmental stories, and it was very heartwarming to be a part of.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here today to talk to y'all. My name is Emma. I'm a senior at Swickley Academy, and my climate journey kind of started back with my grandparents. They were both farmers in Inner Mongolia, so I got exposed to that from a really young age. And I also love plants. I have like 100 plus in my collection right now. So if you want to talk plants, please come talk to me. So some environmental topics that I'm really interested in are environmental engineering, sustainable fashion, also in Cortland's fashion show, and water pollution. So some past projects that I'm super proud of are starting my school's greenhouse. So it's still an ongoing project, and I'm super passionate about it. Also, through a past YCAC project, I was at the Capitol for Radon Advocacy, and also heavy metal pollution research in Pittsburgh's polluted waterways.
You've already met me, but first I have to highlight that Emma is also the YCAC high school leader this year, and she didn't mention that, so I have to because she's doing a very good job. And I feel like a maternal instinct over here, even though I'm like 3 years older than her. So I'm Marley, as I said. I haven't mentioned that I'm a junior studying sustainability and creative writing at Chatham University. If you're not familiar with Pittsburgh, it's just over in Shadyside. Also, if you're not familiar with Chatham, it's where Rachel Carson graduated. So that's a little fun fact to give a connection in your brain. Um, I'm doing that on a track in environmental writing and journalism. So that's kind of what I want to do with my career. I would really like to go into some kind of environmental writing, whether it be just writing books as an author or writing about the environment through a news outlet. I'm already a part of my student-led news outlet at Chatham, and I write a lot about our Eden Hall campus, which is our farm campus that the sustainability students learn a lot of our classes on. So that's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm also very passionate about overall the intersection of writing and arts with climate activism. I was really happy that that's what a lot of the organizations talked about in our second session today, because that's something that I'm very passionate about, and it's really cool to see that's how you all interpreted that question and how that's being implemented in your institutions. I've been a part of YCAC, as Jennifer said, since its founding in 2021. So I've been here for a pretty long time. But it's really interesting. The line that I'm using this year is that I started as a junior in high school, and now I'm a junior in college. So that kind of puts it in perspective. I started off my first year educating middle schoolers on pollution, so a very similar project to what Anwita did last year. And then I did a solo project on environmental art and literature, and I kind of formed a bunch of art and literature from Pittsburgh youth into a magazine that I presented as my final project. My third year, I was a team lead for the Sustainable Art and Fashion Show, so there's kind of a trend of me passing down projects here. So yeah, that was very fun, and I helped Cortland out a lot with that last year, so that's something that I'll always find very fun about our showcase and our year in YCAC. And now I'm the college leader. I started being the college leader last year. I was really happy with all of the projects that we produced last year. I think that it really does get better and better each year, and I'm really excited to see what we kind of form this year because, again, the group is looking very, very promising. It's so fun already. We haven't quite gotten into our project development yet, but I'm really excited about it. So, yeah, we can get into the questions now.
All right. There's a microphone there if you would like to grab it and turn it on. Many of you have already mentioned very briefly what got you interested in climate, kind of what your climate journey was, but I would love to know if you would like to share anything more about really how you got started, what got you interested in this work, and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so what got me started was I grew up in California and we would always go to the beach with my family. And then once we moved here, we didn't get to go to the beach as often. But I remember we went to India one year and there was a beach near my grandparents' house that we would always go to. But the most recent time that I went, we couldn't go in because there was a lot of like litter in it and it didn't smell very good either. And my parents told me to stay away from it. And that was really sad because I was really looking forward to it and that really stuck with me. And then last year I took AP Environmental and I started to learn that so many of like the things that my parents would say like, hey, like don't use too much water when you're brushing your teeth, it's gonna like, you know, like you're gonna use up too much water. But like so many of like these like big overarching things that we would say to like try to like conserve things, those things are already happening. And like kind of understanding what was actually going on was like a big thing for me. And I was like, okay, I want to get more involved in this. And then my like first big thing was joining YCAC, and then I got to learn so much more, and I got to learn about all the things that everyone was doing, and I think that's like my first foot into this like whole advocacy thing, for sure. Yeah.
So I kind of touched on the background to my climate work, but also starting during around COVID time period, we were all home. I was on my laptop a lot more and kind of just diving down these rabbit holes about climate change and environmental justice issues. And I had never known about these things before. And so once I got back to school, I was talking to my college counselor about this, and she was like, you would be a great fit for YCAC. Like, you should totally look into this group. So I ended up doing Eco Leader, which is the summer program, and I loved it so much. I joined YCAC, and it kind of led me to more paths down the climate advocacy route.
So as I said before, my parents are both teachers, so we were they had us for like our birthday celebrations. We'd go to museums and everything. So they really put an emphasis on learning as my siblings and I were children. And so as I was a child, I loved the environment. I loved coming to Phipps and seeing all of the greenery. And then as I started to get older, I became more aware of environmental issues around, like the actual environmental issues of it, and like different injustices. And caring more about it, I realized that what you have to do is be in a community of people who are also working on the same interests. So I joined YCAC. Yes.
My story is very similar with kind of finding YCAC and that being my outlet. But I also, as a child, I went to an environmental, well, it's called the Environmental Charter School. It's in Regent Square in Pittsburgh. So that's where I got my early education, and something that is a fact and something that I'm very passionate about is that what you learn when you're young sticks with you the most. That's just like scientifically proven. So obviously that stuck with me. So yeah, we would spend lessons like going out in Frick Park every day. We would do our science classes, like studying the trees and the insects and the ecosystems with Frick Park in our backyard. So that was definitely very formative for me, just like kind of learning in that environment from such a young age. I went there from K through 8, and then by the time I graduated 8th grade, their high school wasn't ready yet, so I had to transition to a different high school. And that's kind of when I learned that not everybody thought like me, because up until then, I kind of thought that everyone cared that much. So I tried to form the environmental club at my high school, and it didn't go horribly, but it also just wasn't extremely fulfilling. Nobody really seemed to care about it as much as me and like a select few friends. So I kind of wanted something bigger than that, and that's actually when my environmental club advisor told me about YCAC. So that's when I joined, and that's kind of been, and Phipps as a whole has kind of been my environmental activism outlet since, and obviously that's led to so many more opportunities, but that's kind of the root of it all. So yeah.
Thank you all. Well, I can say it's been an honor having you all in the committee, and we're very happy to have you. I would love to know, is there one thing about climate change that you think everyone should know?
I would say that no matter how small the like change that you're trying to make is, on the large scale, it's gonna be something big if you keep going with it. I know like a couple years ago, me and my friends were talking about like fast fashion and like thrifting, and it was like, well, if we buy one thing that's fast fashion, that's not gonna like impact anything. But the thing is, if you keep thrifting or like if you keep going with it, it's gonna make like a large impact in the long run. So I think trying to understand that and understanding even if something you do seems really small in the moment, if you keep going with it, it can make a large impact. So always like do the first step.
Thank you. Do any of you have a memory of a museum, garden, or zoo that had an impact on your interest in nature? I know, Cortlan, you already mentioned this, but an impact on your interest in nature or the environment that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, we would go to the Carnegie Science Center a lot, and the first thing I'd always run to was the section with all the animals and habitats. And something that I didn't know back then was actually these animals are all local to Pittsburgh, so they don't actually get animals that come from different areas. They're all native plants and animals. And so my love for that kind of led me to explore native species more. I mean, I did a project through YCAC on biodiversity in the area. And I actually came back to the Science Center to volunteer in the animals and habitats sector. And you would be surprised how much like a young person who's volunteering in something that they're passionate about can really help open doors and lead to greater things.
So, my very specific memory, I mean, there are a lot with like all of the different ones. My family went there a ton, but we, in around, I think it was like 2017 at the Carnegie Art and History Museum, we had, or there was an exhibit on Glacier National Park, and it was a bunch of photographs of Glacier. And my family really, we were all really interested in it. That was around when I was in 4th grade. So my family went, because of this kind of, we went on this trip out west and stayed at a bunch of national parks camping. And with the national parks like 4th grade pass that you get in for free, which definitely was like super formative for me in my passion for the environment.
Yeah, I mean, nobody has went in depth on it yet. I thought that people would, so I guess I'll take Phipps because that's really my answer. Um, I was trying to think of a different one, but unfortunately, that's the truth. So I'm just gonna own it. But yeah, I would come here all the time as a kid. My family had a membership, um, and it was kind of a space where like obviously every family has drama, but it was a space where no matter what was going on, we could all kind of put that down and come spend a day here, and that was always very special to me. And actually, we had one when I was like very little, and then we paused it for a while, and we didn't get one back again until um, after COVID, whenever they reopened after COVID with like social distancing rules. And my mom and I would come here and just walk around, and that was definitely also very formative for us, kind of like regaining that connection with nature in a way. And then also that's what kind of drew me here, because we formed YCC right after COVID. Everything kind of opened up back up again after COVID. So that kind of reconnection with Phipps is what drew me to join the committee in the first place. So I think just coming here, I would always like walk around and try to memorize the different plants, which is really funny because I worked in guest services one season, and that's actually what I had to do. So I was kind of practiced in it. And yeah, I would just walk around, try to memorize all the different facts on them. I loved the butterfly room, which is not in season right now, but you guys should come back when it's back in season, because it's a great experience. And so that gives you a reason to come back, because that's my favorite part. But yeah, just the connection with nature in the middle of Pittsburgh is just so special to me. So I have to say that.
Thank you. Well, I can say, as many of us are here from cultural institutions, it's very heartening to hear that we had an impact on you all growing up. Kind of along those lines, how can museums, gardens, zoos, and other cultural institutions support your learning and action when it comes to climate change issues and solutions?
I think Phipps does a really great job with this, but creating the first step and kind of creating a space for students to convene and talk to each other, talk to people around the area about what they're passionate in is so important. I mean, I don't know a lot of change that happens just by yourself. Most of the change that I see with the things that my friends are wanting to make and other people, it's really important to create groups and spaces where like-minded people are kind of talking together, putting in ideas, and that's definitely the first step that museums in the area could take to make change for their youth, for sure.
Yeah, I think that also it's kind of, I really do understand that it's kind of daunting at first. It's something that I've seen the side of it to see that it's something that requires a lot of funding. It's something that requires a lot of organization. And I know that creating something kind of at the scale of the Youth Climate Advocacy Committee is something that's very kind of scary to get off the ground. It's not something that's easy to do. But I think just kind of remembering that it's kind of the same thing as was being said earlier, I think by Anwita, just like any action, no matter how big or small, is a good one. Just like that kind of idea in climate justice and climate advocacy as a whole, I think that also applies in this situation. Just having any kind of platform for youth is better than having none at all. Even if it's just maybe like a group that meets once a month, just to like talk or just discuss different topics over snacks. That's even a good impact that is pretty easy to implement. It doesn't have to be something large, especially at first. Anything is meaningful.
Thank you both. And if anyone has questions about how to start a youth climate advocacy committee or something similar, please come talk to me. How can museums be better partners with schools, youth, and community organizations to address climate issues?
So, I think that at the root of all of these kind of institutions is obviously education. So it's very important with especially the formative years for children being exposed to different topics about um, environmental injustices and environmental information. I think a lot of people have the opportunity to be involved with museums and whatnot, but I think it's really important for the schools who might not have that connection, like going on field trips to these places. I think it's really important to give them or try to help give them the opportunity to be in the spaces and learning.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, kind of from both a YCAC perspective and a climate engagement intern perspective, just kind of doing the research that I've been doing on the Climate Toolkit Youth Network. Sorry, I blinked for a second. The Climate Toolkit Youth Network. Um, I've seen so much great work being done, like Cortland said, for young children throughout all of these institutions, and also some great work being done for um, ages up to teens and college students. But I think that it's important to remember that so much of the work that is being done is targeted towards children, because that's kind of what museums at first are kind of formed to do, to like teach young children and families. That's like the main audience. But I think it's important to remember that the education shouldn't stop there, that even after children have aged out of those programs, it's still important to have a place for them in your institutions, especially for teenagers and college students. I think it's especially important to kind of have those programs that intersect between the ages, like we do at YCAC, where you can start in high school, but you still have that community to draw back to throughout college. That's something that's been especially important to me. So I think just remembering to continue the programming, to continue the implementation throughout all of the ages, because youth does not stop whenever you age out of middle school or high school. Youth defined by the UN, as Jennifer likes to point out, is under 35. So a lot of you in here are still youth. And I'm going to say all of you in here are still youth, to not cause any controversy. So I just like the fact that the programming should range through all of the ages of youth and not stop at the more elementary topics, even though that is very important.
Also, I just want to add on to that. Last year, working with the youth art and fashion showcase, we were doing a lot of work to reach out to all of these local schools, and it was very difficult to find people, or like to find the connections specifically for these students. But having them in here, it was a super worthwhile experience for them, and I think that it's generally a very impactful thing.
Yeah, so this year I was a part of the Carnegie now Cayman Science Center Teen Council, and kind of what they were focusing on was realizing that right now we're focusing on the younger kids and the adults, but what about the teens? Like, we don't see a lot of them coming into museums and stuff like that, so how can we boost those numbers? And I feel like one of the things with that is looking towards schools. So a lot of the outreach programs, they were wondering, well, are you seeing these opportunities in schools? And we're kind of realizing that there's a lot of kids, teenagers in high school and college, that really want opportunities to go and learn and also be a part of programs at these local museums, but they just don't know about it in schools. And of course, like, easier said than done, but I feel like if museums, zoos, conservatories can connect with teachers and local schools, that would be a great opportunity to kind of let kids know what opportunities are in the area without them having to go and physically go to these museums and zoos to find out themselves.
I would say what's most important for a partnership that's strong between museums and community is making sure that it's very easy to do. Because last year, whenever we were doing climate education with schools in our area, um, my team was kind of going just off of like what we thought that everyone should know. But we were talking with Marley, and she told us that we should look at like Pennsylvania state standards for education and try to like make it match with that, so that teachers were going to be more inclined to say yes to us coming in. So just making it as easy as possible and as hard as possible to make them say no, so that you can like go and like do your work. So yeah, I think just making it easy.
Thank you. That is all great advice, and I appreciate you sharing it with all of us. How can museums support students if they're dealing with things like environmental or climate anxiety, which is something that's, I think, really common in young people?
So I think one thing that definitely helped me a lot with climate anxiety is being a part of this organization that is YCAC, and being around a bunch of other people having conversations about different things that are happening in the world that are positive and negative, having I think it's really important to have that kind of sense of community and the ability to talk with people about what we're feeling and what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I also agree to that. And also, I think every YCAC meeting, we start off talking about like current news and like things that like are happening at our schools that we're doing with climate advocacy. And I think that always helps me out because sometimes the news that we share isn't like the best and like easiest news to hear, but sometimes we have something good to share, like we did this in our environmental club and stuff like that. And I think that always is like something that like together is like easier to face if it's something bad, and if it's something good, it's like, okay, like we're all making an impact. So, like, there's like hope. Yeah.
I'm glad there are ways that we can support you and work on climate anxiety and like be that kind of that support system. So this is our last question for you all, but I would love to know, it's kind of a combination question. Where do you see museums, gardens, and zoos falling short on climate action? And then, kind of a second part to that, what would the perfect museum, garden, or zoo look like to you? And how would it look to perfectly support youth in the through the climate crisis?
I would say where it's falling short is like maybe just being like too overwhelming. Cause I feel like sometimes whenever you walk through like a museum, there's just so much information that you're getting overwhelmed with. And then at the end, like you remember bits and pieces, but it's like there's just so much. And like it's kind of like hard to like pick one thing that you can like create action with. So I think instead it would be really nice if it were like more direct and like simple messaging and like maybe like one overarching topic that we're like, okay, like I think I really want to like delve deeper into this one topic, or I see that some people are working on this specific thing. I think I want to get deeper into this too. So I think just having stuff that's a little bit more simpler and a little bit more direct so that it's easier for us to kind of understand like what we can do and like where we can kind of like put our efforts into. Yeah.
I see one area for these places falling short is focusing on climate education, but then kind of not getting to the point where it's climate action. So I feel like there's definitely a separation between climate education and climate action for a lot of museums. And I feel like just a lot of places in general, you kind of see the statistics. You see, hey, climate change is exists and it's getting worse. But what about the action part? And I feel like that's where a lot of places fall short, is how can youth actually go out and create action? And that's kind of what a lot of people in YCAC are trying to solve. I mean, I know one of my friends, Mateen, is working on changing actual policies. So going out there, talking to senators, talking to representatives about these issues. And of course, education is great, but through education, our end goal is really to see action, and focusing on that action part, I feel like would be great to see. And that would be something in an ideal museum that I would see.
I agree a lot with that point, and I also think that whenever I think of it, of where people or where museums and gardens and zoos can be falling short on climate action would be kind of breaking a barrier between certain um demographics. And like, for example, I found YCAC through a connection through one of my teachers, and as it wasn't like it's not like anybody can just find this. It's, I think, having an approach to putting out information for all of these students in the area to be able to find it and participate in these organizations is really important. And yeah, so kind of just like having the information of how people are able to participate in museums is really important and very valuable for people beyond random people who happen to have a connection to somebody else who can tell them about it, an opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Making the opportunities very accessible is something that's very important. Kind of to summarize what I was saying before, I think that something that's also very important is, through my research, I've seen kind of programs stopping at the elementary and middle school age And what the Climate Toolkit Youth Network is really looking for is groups like YCAC, where the action continues through like the teenage and college years. So if anyone's looking to join the youth network, that's really kind of what the purpose is for, to kind of empower the youth that are about to enter the workforce, because it's what everyone says, but the youth right now are the future of climate justice. So that's what's really important right now. On top of obviously the very important work that is being done with the younger generations, because I was one of those younger generations that got that important education in the first place. But I think another thing is definitely through YCAC, as Jennifer kind of briefly mentioned before, we offer stipends for our positions. And obviously that's something that's very difficult right now with, the funding crisis that we've kind of been discussing on and off all day. But that is something that's very important. We have our meetings on Wednesday nights after students get home from long days of classes, long days of school and other clubs and sports. And they are very passionate, and that's ultimately the reason why they are there. But they also need the resources provided to them to allow them to make that time in their busy schedules. They need the resources to pay for things like travel, like food, because it is during dinner time. So having just that small resource for them really does make a big impact. It's still not enough. It's not like paying for a job, which is honestly what a lot of our students do. They do enough work to qualify as what I think should be a job, because the work is that impactful. But even just a small stipend really does make a big difference in making that position, as Cortlan was saying, more accessible, both in advertising and in the actual execution of the committee, because it is a lot of hard work that students do. It's not just the meetings that we have once a week, but it's hours of work outside of meetings to make sure that the projects are actually fulfilled in time for our showcase. So just making sure that they know that their work is valued, no matter how that may come, is really important.
Thank you all. Let's give them all a huge round of applause.